Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with Drink a Beer and Play a Game, and welcome to another episode of the Power Hour.
How's it going, guys? Episode 62. Very happy to be here. Very, very tired today.
Jim, I was going to say, you don't open up the goddamn podcast with,
Brian, I'm so excited.
Jim, you dare disrespect this podcast like you do when you got calls from your wife, which was then girlfriend, and go,
Hey,
don't do that.
Brian, some habits just don't die hard. You're like my second wife, Brian, and I'm just as excited to hear from you.
Jim, you're not John McClane. Don't say die hard.
And this is why I sigh.
It's a reference.
Yes, thank you, Brian. But yeah, we were both up until like 1:30 in the morning last night drinking and having a little quiz game over Zoom, so.
Yeah, it was interesting. And interesting fact about Jim, I knew he was a lightweight, but he was drinking super light beer and getting super drunk after like 3. So
It wasn't after 3, and I also had a big whiskey drink in the middle there.
Jim, I don't want to hear it.
Too bad. That's what happened.
That is not the kind of response you should have.
Yeah, we're going to do it.
Oh, excuse me.
Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry. Whew, I'm just allergic to that bullshit. All right. Whew, sorry, Jim. So
Proud of yourself, aren't you?
I mean, come on, you gotta give me points.
I ain't giving you shit.
Give me some points.
No, there would be no points given.
Give me some points, Jim.
No.
So, what are you drinking tonight? Because you said you're saving good stuff for the podcast. So, what you got?
Well, I forgot to put something cold on tap, so I'm going with what I was drinking last night. So I'm plowing through some more Yingling Flights. So this is like the newer Yingling. I guess they're trying to hit the ultralight market at this point. So it's 95 calories, 4.2% alcohol. Tasty little, refreshing little drinky here.
Well, Jim, if you
Goes down
remember,
smooth.
Yingling Light beer, not Yingling Light, was the worst rated beer we've ever had.
Right.
And
this is Yingling Flight, I should say.
No. I know that. I'm saying, so if this is actually supposed to be like less than those beers, there's no way it's good.
I don't know, man. Somehow this, whatever little mixing in the old factory they did some little pixie dust and they made something good out of this. Because, yeah, originally Yingling Light is one of the worst beers we've ever did.
No, light beer. You got to be specific. We didn't mind Yingling Light. Then there's their stupid-ass light beer. Remember it came in those,
I know, yeah. There's the light lager, which is good, and then there's
Yeah.
the light beer, which sucks, in the blue
Yes.
can.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll eventually try that and see what's going on with it. Jim's also the guy that's like, White Claws are very refreshing.
They are refreshing. Brian, you
right,
toil away in a hot summer day and not pick out a nice, cool White
You've
Claw,
never
crack it
toiled
open.
away at anything in a hot summer day.
I have toiled. There's been toiling done.
Jim, tugging on your pud doesn't count.
Takes effort.
All right. Well, I'm going with the Victory Dirt Wolf Double IPA. I've talked about this beer many times. It's my favorite double IPA, probably from PA, and it's maybe my second favorite Victory beer, if I can pull something from Jim.
Oh, here we go.
Untamed Howling Hop Flavor. This strong pack of American hops immerse in an aggressive dry hopping to deliver intense aromas and flavors of citrusy, earthy notes. It's 8.7%. I got 2 of these, and I'm actually kind of already on my second one.
Ooh.
So it is brewed with Citra, Simcoe, Mosaic, and Chinook hops. So it's... I'll admit, if you've tried other double IPAs, it doesn't stand out. The thing I like about it, it's a little bit stronger than most and somehow a little bit smoother. So otherwise, there's nothing super unique about this beer. Very hoppy. But if, like I said, if you're in the PA area, it's probably one of my favorites that doesn't have a bunch of crazy flavors attached to it.
Chinook hops, huh?
Brian's made out of helicopters?
Man, you couldn't wait, Jim. Couldn't
not.
wait to
As soon
throw
as I
that in
heard.
there. Really couldn't. I feel like another sneeze is building in me just from hearing that. So, Jim.
I'm just going to hang up the call now. I got what I needed out of this.
Damn it, Jim. I want to know, have you, every time we've asked this, your answer's the same, and I'm always hoping you're going to say you've started playing something good or something you haven't touched in a while. I know you're doing video games for a site.
Right.
Have you played anything new or anything else other than the ones you're doing for the site?
I've been playing through actually some of the sequels to Rocket Knight Adventures, so Sparkster on both the Genesis and the Super NES, which are like wildly different games because, that was the thing in the 90s. So, like, I've had them for a little bit. I've only, like, dabbled my dick in them a little bit, so I'm like, you know what, I'm really going to put some time into these now.
I've never actually played those games, so it's basically just a action platformer, right?
For the most part, yeah. And the big gimmick is having, like, a jetpack to charge up.
Is it just like a very temporary, you fly for a little bit, or is it like there's just flying levels in between?
There's flying levels in between, but the jetpack, like, you charge it up to, like, do, like, super attacks and shit like that. Gotcha. Or to, like, help you with, like, bouncing off walls for platforming and different things like that.
Yeah, I'll have to try those games. How many are there? Well, no, I don't want to go to...
No, don't worry. There's only 4 of them total. And it's a thing I am maybe later on in the year or next year we'll go through them. First Rocket Knight Adventures, the 2 Sparkster games, and then like the 2010 reboot just called Rocket Knight that no one seemed to like. So,
Interesting. Yeah, maybe I'll dip into those.
They're good. I'll still say the first one's probably the best, but so far I'm liking what I'm seeing with these other 2 games.
So, I'm still going through the goddamn Mojave Wasteland.
Jesus.
And so I bought the Ultimate Edition when I did get the New Vegas, and this was years and years ago.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, that includes all 4 DLC, like the main DLC add-ons. Each DLC add-on can add up to 8 to 12 hours of additional gameplay, which is kind of the reason why I'm at that point in the game, and it's not really a spoiler, but like most Fallout games, there comes a point when it's like, if you make a decision now, you can't go back, and you're going to like basically get one of the 4 endings in the game. Yep. So I was like, well, before I do that, let me blast through, because for some goddamn reason, I'm glad I looked this up. Fallout 3, Fallout 4 both had the feature of if you beat the main quest, you could go back and play DLC and do other shit in the game. Mm-hmm. You can't do that with New Vegas. Apparently, if you beat the main quest, the game is done.
Oh.
So I was like, well, that's really friggin' stupid. So I have to do the DLC first. So did you do the DLC when you played that?
No, I never did.
Interesting. So, all right. So, it's funny because when I finish it, I kind of want to gauge what other people think. And so far, I've been pretty spot on with my assessment. The first DLC was called Dead Money. It basically sends you to this whole other area that was based around this.
Was that the one about the Burn Man?
Yeah, no, that's a different one.
Okay.
So, Dead Money is about the Sierra Madre, which is basically a casino, but the whole area has this poison gas that just very slowly eats away your health. But it won't kill you, but it'll literally get you down to 1 hit point. So you got to kind of go in and out of buildings fast. So it's like another form of radiation that you can't have protection against. And there's a few different like monsters and shit, but I just found it to be very, very bland. It was kind of an interesting idea, and it was like, oh, okay, cool. It's got an interesting story. I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but by the time I was done it, I was like, the whole thing is like a maze of buildings that all look the same. You get into the casino. I thought it was going to get way more interesting, but it didn't. So that took about 8 or 10 hours. Then there's Honest Hearts, which has the Burn Man, which he was a cool character. And it's basically their spin on like going to, it's not Yellowstone, like Joshua Tree, like one of those areas out there. And essentially it's like, they're supposed to be Native American tribes,
yeah.
But like even in the game, it's like goofy. Like they call things tomahawks, which is like a lead pipe that has like some things through it. So it's just really, really goofy. It was really like didn't take long at all. I felt like that was like, okay, at least that was more of an effort. And right now I just finished up Old World Blues, which, Jim, you would absolutely love this one.
Okay.
It's very think like old sci-fi, like robots against humans, but with a ton of humor. And the robots remind me of the things from Mystery Science Theater 3000 and the way they talk and the type of humor they have.
Nice.
Like they don't know what human beings they describe your fingers as little penises that keep wiggling and they're afraid you're going to stick them in the robots. So they're like, we will circumcise you if you keep coming at us with it's just
that's
goofy
awesome.
shit. And that world was really, really, really cool. One of my favorite DLCs for Fallout ever. And I'm doing the final DLC now, which tells the backstory of the courier and how he came to that first scene in the game.
Oh, nice.
And so I would highly recommend it, especially for you, Jim.
Yeah.
If you ever do decide to pick up that game again, because you love that game so much. But yeah, so I'm at like about 75 hours in this game.
Jesus.
And I just, at this point, like, did you get this way with any of the Bethesda games where you do love them and you can't wait to get the story, but there's a part of you're like, I just need to finish this now.
Oh, that's happened with all of them.
Like, I realize like what I used to do is be so careful about micromanaging and I keep going back and getting extra ammo. But at this point, like my character's maxed out. I'm at level 50. I can't get any higher. I can't have any additional stats or perks. I have basically the most crazy weapons and even death claws. They are still crazy because I'm on hardcore mode, so they can still fuck you up. But like, I feel not completely indestructible, but I'm kind of like really penisy when I go in areas because I'm using like a rocket launcher because I have so much ammo for it now.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm just at that point in the game where I'm like, all right, let me just run through areas and not appreciate them quite as much, which any game that you spend 70 plus hours, you're going to get fatigued.
Oh, to say the least. Because, yeah, when I did my playthrough, I actually, I think I had figured that, the spot you were talking about was the spot where it's like, okay, this is where the story changes. So I did 4 separate saves and then went through each of them to finish off the story with, each way. So I think by the end, I still put, 50 to 60 hours into my first playthrough, but, by the time I was done, I was like, ugh, I'm done with this for a while.
Yeah, and did you and I think we've talked about Bethesda. I love it forces you to choose going down one path or another. You and I think, end up generally doing the same path. We're usually like the good guy and siding with this side that's like
the resistance or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this one, I tended to be more NCR leaning because all the early settlements were supporters of them.
Right.
And I was very anti I hate how they call them Kaiser, but Caesar's Legion in the game. But yeah, I'm kind of like you. I wanted to go through and get all 4 of them, but at this point, like I said, I just want to get it done. So I'll probably pick one ending. I have that save point.
Right.
And if I ever get tired in the future, I'll come back and do that. But I got that, and the reason I really want to blast through this is because I couldn't help myself. On Amazon, there was a Prime deal for $15. I got Fallout 76.
Nice.
And I got it 2 weeks ago. I got it delivered.
I hear they finally added the NPC, what do you call it, content to it and shit like that.
Yeah, ironically, I wasn't aware that was going to happen. And then I actually saw your buddy Jerry talking about that.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, what is this? And I guess I got it at the perfect time because they added all this shit that might make the game better. So eventually when we do reviews of these games and when I give my opinions, I'll kind of have probably a better version than most people when they first had it. So my opinion of the game may be better than I think most people's initial take.
Oh, we're going to have to really, punch home that, hey, we're playing this 2 years after launch.
Mm-hmm. But I'm excited because it's another Fallout game, and I've so far never been disappointed with a Fallout game. And I know what the criticisms are, but that's kind of the game I'm going to jump into next after New Vegas.
Nice.
So, yeah, that's where I'm at with that. It took a little while, but it's definitely an interesting game.
Mouthy little bitch, aren't you?
Jim, what can I say? I like 2 things, beer and games.
Well, at least we live the gimmick.
All right, so what do we got for Patreon questions? And before Jim goes into them, thank you everyone who is a Patreon. We really appreciate it. And, anyone else who wants to support us, where can they do it, Jim?
Well, Brian, funny you should ask. All you have to do is open up your little web browser there, type in patreon.com/DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, where for as little as $2 a month, you can ask a question that we will answer on this Power Hour podcast. So, going into our questions. First up, from Gamer Astral. It was actually funny. Last week, I was talking to Astral, and he was like, I was like, oh, thanks again for the question. He was like, I forgot to get a question in the last one. I was like, oh, yeah.
Good job, Jim.
He's just always there. I just assumed. But he's back this week, back strong. So, when is Jim getting a Saturn? 2020 question edition. He's just going to keep asking that. Long story short, the last thing I need right now is another console. So, unless I find some crazy deal like I did with my CDI where I can find it for like $10 and I just pick it up on a whim and it works, that will probably be how I get my Saturn. But in the meantime, I am not going out of my way to get one.
I would actually say I'd probably be more likely to get a Saturn before Jim.
At this point,
And that system's always intrigued me, and honestly, that was ironically enough one of the purchase items I had on my mind for too many games. Now, obviously, we've said many times, I don't know what the situation's going to be come. Was it supposed to be June?
Yeah, it's always the end of June, and even if they still have it, I don't even know if I'm still going to trust going.
Yeah, so there's a lot on it, but like basically, because what were they going for roughly there?
I want to say like, what, 50-ish, maybe?
Yeah, so that's, in my mind, I'm like, assuming it's complete, I was going to just pick up one while we were there this year, because there are some games I really want to try out for it, so
Yeah.
I'd be the one to bite the bullet and get that, and therefore, there'd be better games looked at versus if Jim got it, there'd be a bunch of goddamn pinball games.
There are, I think, 5 pinball games in a Saturn, 5 or 6.
Of course, you probably already have one. Like, you've probably been like,
No, I don't. I only own one Saturn game, and it's the only Saturn game I've ever found at a Goodwill. So I've just been holding on to that and stashing away.
I hate you, Jim.
It was
What
$5.
is it?
Gun Griffin.
What is it?
Gun Griffin.
It's better than a pinball game.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
it's a mech game. It's fun. So I hear. Haven't tried it.
We know, Jim, because you don't have a system.
Cox. No, what do you call it? My best friend growing up had a Saturn for a little bit, and it was a fun system to play
You
around
didn't have a best friend.
with. God, I had one friend.
The lunch lady didn't count.
Exactly.
She gave me extra meatloaf.
She gave me meatloaf, and then she touched my pecker.
Jim,
What? We had an intimate relationship.
don't trivialize young boys who get accosted by older women.
I'm just going to move on. All right, next up from Game Whisperer Dean. Since it's the Easter holidays, what's the best Easter egg you've ever seen in a game you've played? Happy Easter.
Whew.
It's a tickler of a question right
Goddamn great question. Ooh, best Easter egg. Holy shit, where do I even begin? Jim, you can start if you have one off the top of your head. I mean, this is one.
Yeah, there's a couple cool ones I know off the top of my head. Like in Crusader of Senti, you can randomly find Sonic like laying on a beach in a lawn chair, or like if you play through Doom and you go through like the special, some of the special hidden doors, you can find the heads of the developers like on, decapitated on a stake and shit like that. So those are ones that are always cool. I'm trying to think of one that like I really like loved and got surprised by though. Shit damn balls.
All right, so I'll throw mine out there if Jim's going to keep thinking. It's only because I just was talking about the Fallout shit, and I actually may be inspired to make a video about this. Playing Fallout 4, and if for anyone who's played any of the Fallout games, those things are riddled with Easter eggs of pop culture. It doesn't matter if it's video games, movies, whatever. And I was going through an area, and I was going through like this bay, river, lake, whatever the fuck it was. And there was a giant, it looked like a skeleton or some kind of shape of a killer dolphin that just happened to look like a shark eating a dude on a boat. And I was like, that looks just like Jaws. And I was like, there's no way that's a coincidence. And I'd seen things before, But then in that game in particular, I remember I was like, there's a lot of random horror like movie references, and that's my wheelhouse. So of course I'd notice it. And then from that point on, I decided to go through and like find all of them. And even in New Vegas, one of my favorite Easter eggs has to be, it's really, really small nod, and you'd have to be a weirdo like me who watches too much horror movies to get it. But in one of these random bunkers all the way on the perimeter of the map in New Vegas, there's a shack with a million like ghouls around it. So after you kill them all, you go in there and you look at a bed, and there's a girl with red hair named Trash, and she's got diaries talking about how she wants to be a ghoul and death and all this. And that's a reference, Jim. I think you've seen this movie. I think I made you watch it. But remember Return of the Living Dead?
I believe so. Is that the one with the cemetery dance scene in the beginning?
Yes, and that's the girl Trash with red hair.
Yep.
So they literally were referencing her in this game, and I was like, holy shit, like really? Like, and I double checked, I looked it up, I was like, they sure did. They referenced her. So throwaways to that where you really have to be a fan of something obscure, I respect it. It's not like an easy, low-hanging fruit. It's something that it's a deep dive. So I love things like that.
Bride, Trash made a man out of you.
Well, when I was a kid, I was like, oh my God, there's a cuter.
Damn it.
I see some discoloration.
No, you do. Yeah,
I love that question now.
Yeah, I don't have one as good as that, though, so that was a great question. Shit.
Yeah.
All right, next up, G to the next level. Which version of Midway's Tapper did you guys play in the arcade or have fond memories of? The original Budweiser Tapper or Root Beer Tapper?
By the time I played it as a kid, and I did play in an arcade, I think for sure it was a Root Beer Tapper. It wasn't Budweiser. But as I got older, and especially for the site, I referenced it. I've played every version online, and then they had the updated Tapper for the phones. I actually really enjoyed that game. But yeah, the first one I ever played was Root Beer Tapper because I didn't know any. I don't even know if machines at that point were allowed to have the Budweiser ones.
By that
at least
point,
at actual kid arcades near me.
Yeah, by that point they weren't. Yeah, I actually never played Tapper in an arcade until like last year at the Barcade in Philly. So they have the Budweiser Tapper there, so that's the one I played.
Nice.
Got my ass handed to me.
That's a great game, though.
Yeah, it is.
You're like, it can't be that hard.
Oh, dude, fucking second round, I'm just like burning through quarters. I'm like, shit. Goddamn drunks at that bar. Never happy. But now, good question. I wish there was more games out there like that. Stupid kids, gotta protect them.
Yeah. Who talks about beer and games together?
Yeah. Whew. Ugh. Well, next up from Sandy N. If you had to cover another topic that didn't include beer or games, what would it be and why?
Oh, I'm gonna guess she means with you and me together.
Yeah, let's go with that.
I think you and me. I mean, we could talk wrestling. I'm very limited on anything new.
Right.
We could talk movies. Obviously, I'd pull you into weird horror movies. Like, I would love for us to just talk about all the goddamn obscure horror movies we watch in college and then keep watching.
Basket Case 4. Oh, boy.
Blood Diner.
Oh, Blood Diner's a classic.
Yeah, I think those, it would be interesting to see you and me talk about music together.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, I think those three, wrestling, movies, music, probably would be the most likely candidates for us together.
Yeah, and I think, and who knows, maybe it's something we'd actually eventually do, but maybe some of our stories, like, because we reference it all the time with, like, HeroScape and shit like that, but, like, tabletop gaming stuff, so, like, I could talk about, like, HeroClix, and we could talk about all of our HeroScape escapades, and, you know.
Talk about HorrorScape?
Yeah, and HorrorScape.
HorrorClix.
And HorrorClix, and me going to, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic tournaments and shit like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would be interesting.
Yeah, so I think that's, like, another thing that, like, I could go on for ages about. Even though I have a finite, thing to pick from at this point, because I haven't gone to any of that shit in, like, 10 years, but...
they'd be
Memories.
they'd be all callbacks, and then we get together and play newer ones and be like, oh boy.
Yeah, we can play. What the fuck? Master Quest. We can finally whip that out for the page that I got a scar on my face over.
Oh, that's still one of my favorites.
Yeah, spider bit me in the face and scarred me, but oh boy, that was sure worth going to the attic for. All these 8 years later, I'm never touching it again.
It's not as bad as popping a blood vessel from almost getting caught beaten off.
I don't know. I think there's a little more dignity in popping a blood vessel being off because, god damn it, I had a good session going. And last but not least, good old Snarkcast. Since the mini console is now available via Amazon Japan at least, overrated or underrated, the TurboGrafx 16?
Well, Jim, I know you don't have it yet, and I'm actually terribly disappointed for the way you suck off the TurboGrafx.
Here's the thing. I do want it, but, I mean, it's got 50-some games on it, but they kind of, like, fudged the numbers there because some of that 50 is the fact that they included the NTSC and the North American and the Japanese version of the games, and they just went, oh, these are two different games, when they're not. And then there's a number of games that, like, I think there's a couple RPGs on there that are in Japanese that I'm not going to be able to read anyway. So there's weird decisions like that on the damn thing. And, you know, with it being $100, and the fact that a lot of the games that I would really want on it, I already have. So it's not a must-buy right now at full price for me. I do want it eventually, though. What? What?
I'm just going to ask a simple question.
Here we go.
It's very simple, Jim.
Go ahead.
Would you say you paid more for Hotel Mario than you would for this mini that is multiple games for a system you claim to love so much?
That would be an accurate statement.
So, just by that logic alone, do you not think it's worth it?
Well, you got me there.
Exactly. So just here's the deal. I don't care enough about the TurboGrafx, but I would be interested in playing it and playing through those games. And if you did get that, I could even be entertained to review majority of said games. But I'm not going to get it because I don't care enough, because I could just emulate those games. In fact, I have.
Right.
But I know it's something you're going to get. I know it's something you want to get.
Oh, I do.
So this is just like when I was so disappointed you didn't just get that Vectrex, because you talk so much about
It was
it.
$300, and they're
I don't care.
notoriously broken most of the time.
Don't want to hear it, Jim. You can't talk all this game. You just can't. You can't talk all this game.
I can talk about whatever I goddamn please.
And then you don't pull the trigger. You know, you can't be that guy. You're like Upham. Don't be Upham.
Upham.
Yeah, from Saving Private Ryan, the guy that's like a little bitch and he just carries the ammo and he watches his buddy get killed.
Jesus, what a
Don't be
reference
that
that is. Holy shit.
Don't be Upham. That's all I'm going to say.
Look, Bri, I was a stingy guy
Pull
when
the
it came
trigger.
to Genesis Mini.
Pull the trigger.
I waited until that got down to, like, you know,
And that's a perfect example,
$30.
because you probably had, what, 80% of the games on that?
about that.
So that was a useless buy. There was no reason for you to buy that, because
Darius, which never came out before on the Genesis. Tetris,
could
Wonder Boy in
emulate it.
Monsterland, Super Fantasy Zone, Japanese only.
Jim, you're not. And how much did you pay for it?
30?
It doesn't matter, because you already had
Maybe
majority
technically
of those
nothing.
games.
Maybe technically nothing because it was a Christmas gift.
That's the only acceptable thing right there. But even then, I don't want to hear it. Just, you can't be jacking off the TurboGrafx like you do and then not go buy the mini for the system that you can't stop talking about.
Look, it'll be gotten
That's-
eventually. They'll be
Jim,
getting gottens.
That would be like if they released, throw it out there, some kind of like horror game collection, and I don't care what the price is, and I didn't have 60% of those games, and all I do is talk about horror games, and I'm like, I'm not going to buy it because just get it. Fuck.
Brian, did you get the Castlevania collection yet?
Castlevania collection for what?
It's on all the systems.
Oh, you mean the Konami collection?
Yeah.
Oh, I have all those games. So go on. So yeah, no, I have all the games except for the ones that would be on like Nintendo DS, like the handheld shits.
You mean the Game Boy games?
Yeah. Because I thought there were some newer Game Boy, like DS games.
No, there are, but they're not in that Konami collection.
I thought they were. Then maybe I don't know what's on the Konami collection.
The Castlevania collection, it was the one that
Yeah.
had like 1, 2, 3, 4, I want to say, and like I think all 3 Game Boy ones, and then like Kid Dracula too, something like that.
Yeah, so that's what, like I said, I have the emulated versions of all the Game Boy ones and even Kid Dracula. So for me, that's not worth it because I have all the main games.
Well, yeah, same thing for with the Turbo Mini. I have all the main
You
games,
just
so I
said you
need all the
don't
other
have. You said there's 50 games, and let's say you're correct, and they fudged the numbers. Let's say there's 40 games. You probably have 15 of those.
No, I have a bunch of them, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot more in there that I could have had.
There you go. So I won.
I mean, money-wise, it's worth it alone probably just for Sapphire and Rondo, but
there you go.
I already have
so
Rondo
I
to
won.
PSP.
I won double.
Yeah, you didn't win shit.
So Daddy wins again.
No,
Jim,
wrong.
just buy it. Just buy it. You've wasted your money on so many terrible games. Let's just put it this way. You've put out probably triple that amount on stupid-ass CDI games. So you can put money out for a system that you love when you knew the CDI games were going to be bullshit.
No, CDI games are exceptionally cheap except for Hotel Mario.
Which is
And the Zelda
exactly still more than that by itself.
For probably the memories I got from it. The memories I'll cherish forever.
Was it worth it?
Probably the memories I'll cherish forever.
So yes, Todd, when he gets it, we'll be able to dive deeper into was it worth it or not. And like I said, I would gladly, at that point, then Jim could give me that or whatever, and we could actually play through and we could review those games. And we could really dive deep on how bad the TurboGrafx is.
Incorrect. Beautiful system.
That you're not willing to pay for.
Oh, eventually. Give me a little bit of a price drop.
Any more Patreon questions?
Nope, that wraps it up for this week.
Thank you, everyone. Those were some great questions. They really were good questions this week.
Yeah,
so
great.
Thank you.
Right, as opposed to every week, they're great questions all the time. We have to keep them coming back with their $2. Talk up the peanut gallery, Brian.
Jim, give your milkshake out to them.
That's when I start the OnlyFans. Then that money's for me. My milkshake, my dollars, damn it.
By the way, can we address the fact that I was absolutely right about what I talked about on Thought Cops?
What do you mean? Oh, what about just like everyone just running to start an OnlyFans as soon as the pandemic started?
Yeah, one of the things, the annoying things in the internet. And then literally even after that episode, how many have you and I talked about or shared that people have been popping them up like goddamn sunflowers?
Brian,
it's fucking
Lizzo's
insane.
starting one, Brian. Happy days are here.
God damn it. That bitch. So, all right. Yeah. So, Jim, this next one, I'm going to try to summarize it. I think I know what you're trying to say. But
Why don't I just go into it?
You can, but let me set it up.
Fine.
So,
let me do it. Jesus fuck.
So I've been talking a lot about the Resident Evil 3 remake, and obviously everyone is now, okay, just keep remaking all the Resident Evil games. There's a small amount of people that are really gung-ho about a Code Veronica remake. I'd be for that just because I still think that original game is a bit overrated.
I think that'll make more sense than with the one we're getting next.
Yeah, they're talking about Resident Evil 4, and here's the deal. A lot of people have commented on this, and it's very divisive, where to the point where everyone's like, why do you need to remake that game? It's new enough. They've already had the HD remake of that game, which just made the graphics sharper, so it's like, what are you going to do to the game?
Right.
So some of the things they've talked about were add running. And then really, like, what else could they do besides the graphics? So, all right, here's what I thought about with this is what would be really cool. You make Resident Evil 4 a horror game, not an action game, which is ultimately what it was.
Right.
Except for that first village where you kind of still maintain that horror feel. If you give it... they're obviously going to use the same engine. Like Resident Evil 3, make no mistake, it's way, way, way more action-oriented than Resident Evil 2, but but it still maintained a better level of horror. And Resident Evil 4, the horror was just downplayed so much. And one of the weird things, I feel like you can't have lighting that's done too well, meaning too bright in a game, and be a horror game. And that game is like everything's super bright.
Oh, yeah.
So if you give that a dingy feel, you make it more horror, and fine, if you want to make the goddamn enemies still the same ones from Resident Evil 4, even though I don't like them because they're not zombies, give it the same physics, though, as these Resident Evil games, where you have the gore really upped. Like, then I could see you're not really changing too much, because I really wouldn't want them to fuck with the story. Like, I wasn't even thrilled they fucked with the Resident Evil 3 story as much as they did. But yeah, just give it a fresh coat of paint, make it more horror, and maybe do something like really make ammo scarce, really make it a lot harder to kill things. You don't need to throw 50 enemies at you in some of those little arena areas. Like, just make it more horror based, but keep all those action elements like Resident Evil 3 did. That would be enough of a remake where I'd be like, okay, that's worth it. And I think it would be new enough where people could appreciate that.
Yeah, and you pretty much hit on everything I was going to hit on. And it's kind of funny because, like, people still have their boners strong for RE4, man. Like, even something as simple as, like, a Twitter conversation, because, like, Justin Wang was like, why are they even doing this? What more can they do? And I wrote down, I don't know, besides adding running, I don't know what else they could put in there. Dude, shitstorm after that of people going, actually, the fact that you had to, stop and shoot added to the tension as an intentional design choice. And then other nerds going back and forth going, actually, it was a design flaw because of the limitations of the controller and the system at the time. And it just kept going and going. And I was like, oh my God, shut the fuck up. I just knew the only thing the original game was missing. But, like, at this point, like, do you think they keep all the enemies? Do you think, like, they keep the little Napoleon dude, or they just overhaul him to not be as goofy? Like, do you think they take the quips out between levels and shit like that?
Yeah, well, given how...
Because that's the thing that people really like about it, too, though.
I mean, that guy was him and Ashley, like, the corny dialogue was, like, all the original Resident Evils were known for their corny dialogue. And then even with the Resident Evil 1 remake, they toned that away. And Resident Evil 2 and this 3, there is cheap one-liners, but they feel like bad action movie things versus, like, that 90s we grew up with, like a Jill sandwich and all that shit. Like,
right.
And like you're saying that. So I think, yeah, all the cheesiness goes away. You make it a much more serious game. Yeah, I think that Resident Evil 4 was the final game where you had the full cheese. Like, think about, since we went through them, think about 5, think about 6.
Yeah, 5 and 6 were too serious about it.
They were all super serious.
Yeah,
so
Revelations even, and I love that game, but it was super serious.
Yeah, so, and you know what? I'm even fine with that. Like, I understand that the games we grew up with, and we like cheesiness. We like those terrible one-liners and bad translations, whatever you want to call them.
Right.
You're gonna get rid of all that. I still think you had the Napoleon dude because he was especially his boss fight was really interesting.
Right, and he was a central character. So
I think you just really make it kind of like what everyone felt when they did the Resident Evil 1 remake, because it did feel soon. Like, it wasn't super soon. But that would roughly be about the same timeline as, if they do make this Resident Evil 4 remake, where it's like, well, okay, we know the PlayStation 1 graphics weren't great, but do you really need to remake it? And when they did, you went, oh shit, okay, this is much better.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, this is a way longer gap too. Like, the first to the remake was maybe 6 years, 7 years, where this is going to be like 15 years of difference.
Is it? So wait, Resident Evil 1 came out, what, 96?
96, 97?
97?
Yeah.
And then remake was
02, 03, maybe a 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're talking 6-7 years versus
Even though the jump from the PS1 to like the GameCube era was such a jump, whereas the jump these days isn't. I mean, the jump from a PS2 game to the next generation or the tail end of this one is just as crazy. But
oh dear God, I just got a terrible image. Please, if you're gonna do this remake, don't make it VR and first person.
People
see
seem to
that.
people seem to like the VR first person version of 7.
No. I love Resident Evil 7 as first person, but that's because it worked for that game because you literally never had more than 3 enemies on the screen at once, and the purpose wasn't tight, crisp shooting and all that. Like,
Right.
You'd have to completely butcher everything about Resident Evil 4, and you'd literally, it would be a completely different game. Like, I'm fine. You can make it not zombies. You can make it multiple enemies. I'm just saying, make them a little tougher. Make them more like the bullet sponges that they are in RE2 and kind of in RE3. And let's see what happens with that. Like, make it a darker, grimier, like a legit horror game with just action controls. And I'd be fine with that. Because you and I have talked about it. I mean, there's no doubt Resident Evil 4 resurrected the Resident Evil series and
Right.
kind of revolutionized this over-the-shoulder action kind of horror games. So yeah, it's understandable everyone's freaking out, but at the same time, it's kind of inevitable. You're going to kind of have to, you want to cash in on these remakes while you can, and that's arguably the most popular from the entire series.
Now here's the follow-up to that. Do you think they're cashing in a little bit too much? Are we going to hit that other cycle again that we always do with Resident Evil where people love it, people hate it, gets rebooted, people love it, people hate it, gets rebooted, remade, people love it? Like, you think we're going to hit that even faster than we were before?
Yeah, I'm
Because
worried
Capcom
about
being
that.
Capcom, man, they're going to milk until it's dry and freaking dust.
That's almost why I kind of want them to do Code Veronica. Like, get this system out. Like, get the current gen, get the models and like everything you're running off of this current system, like out of your like do Resident Evil Code Veronica, get it done.
Bust
and
that
then,
last nut.
Yeah, like get something new built up for the next gen system and do that for Resident Evil 4. Like, take the time to really build it up. Because if you just give us the same, the word's escaping me, but if you gave us the same system that
The same
built
RE2 engine, just
yes,
like... Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
That same engine, then people will start being like, okay, really? Like, unless you do something, and do you really want to fuck with the writing or the story or anything? So it's like, this will be the make or break for them. I think either it'll like sell like hotcakes and get really well received, or it'll be like, wow, they really fucked this up, and I don't care what they want to sell us. Nobody's going to buy it for at least a while until they make Resident Evil 8, which is what I hope they focus on more, because Resident Evil 7 was so goddamn good, and they went back to that pure horror, and it's a new story. Like, I want them to do that. Don't give us so many remakes.
Right. Now I'm with you on that one. It'll be nice to see like a brand new one. And yeah, use the 7 engine or just expand on that one. Whatever.
Yeah.
But all right, so next topic up is going to be a throwback to 2 or 3 episodes ago where we talked about, video game music inspiring or being inspired by real life song. So this week I have the opposite of it, and this is one of the more well-known ones, and it's, a pop song that was inspired by video game music. So, Brian, we're going to try something here. I don't know if it's going to work. Maybe in the future. Yeah, you might have to do some editing on the back end on this one. But do you have these 2 links hooked up already?
Yes.
All right. So
before we start this, I did decide to take a listen.
okay. So basically, this week's this session is going to be between Sonic 1 on the Master System and a
And
Janet
Game
Jackson
Gear.
song. What?
A Master System and Game Gear, because the video link you showed is
Well, they're
specific to the-
basically the same system.
Yeah.
But yeah, Master System and Game Gear. So it's going to be the bridge zone from Sonic 1 on those 2 systems, and Together Again by Janet Jackson. Not exactly what you would think would be ripping off a video game, but... So...
Yeah, it's so for the main video, look at the links below. I will clearly make an easy video that it'll stand alone with the actual sounds. in the background of Jim and I talking, but you listen to it and right off the bat, yes, it is clearly inspired. Like Jim said, it's a very interesting choice, but
Yeah, for the Janet song, skip to minute 24, and you'll hear when the hook kicks in. That's when you hear it.
I get it. What's interesting is the only part that kind of confuses me is I'm looking at the Janet Jackson video, and it's saying 1997. And Sonic 1 was well before then, right? That was 91.
Yeah, the Janet song was ripping off this Sonic song.
Yeah, so last time, sorry, that's where I got confused.
The last time it was in the opposite, where, what do you call it?
It was they were ripping off Paula Abdul.
They ripped off, they used Paula Abdul to inspire Streets of Rage.
Yes. This time, I mean, it sounds, as Jim said, the hook, if you listen to Janet Jackson's song, the Together Again, it's pretty damn close. Could it be a coincidence?
No. No. No, rhythmically, it's exactly the same. We're talking the 90s here where music sampling everything was sampled from something else. So
here's my question. What I would love to do and like kind of dig into, not that we're going to right now. So do you think this was a case of whoever wrote her music or developed whatever, do you think they were just playing those games while like working on an album and they're like, damn, that would be a kind of interesting beat to like this?
Yeah.
Or like, how, like, you think it's just that simple? Or like, is this not a kid, but is this someone who they were in 91, they were 16 or so, listening to or playing Sonic all the time, and then they grew up, became a writer, and they were just inspired, kind of like me and you. Like, if for some reason we took a wild path, and you do play music, but like
right.
If you actually wrote music, it'd be like, a lot of Jim's songs sound like Streets of Rage 2. Or like, like all of a sudden, like it sounds like you could pull inspiration from shit you grew up with. Like, do you think it was as blatant as we're going to use this exact thing? Or maybe it was just something this person was very, very inspired by as a kid and it just stuck with them?
I think it's more the latter because, like you said, like I do play music and I'll always like randomly, like when trying to come up with a song, say I need a fill. I'll just rip off a fill from a song that's stuck in my head from 15 years ago and shit like that. So
yeah,
I think anyone with like a more musical kind of mind, they always have those random beats and songs. And even for me with, old video game tracks, I have random beeps and boops going in my head all the goddamn time that I can have stuck in my head for weeks on end. So what do you call it? Like, I'm sure he was sitting there and he was just like, hey, you know what? Let me see if this beat would work for this. And he just threw it in there and went, oh, shit, this does work.
It works really well.
Yeah, so I guarantee that's probably what happened.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Like, I don't think it was...
I mean, if he was sitting there playing his Game Gear and went, my God, that would be even funnier. But I think most likely it was a thing where he just always had that song stuck in his head because it's a catchy-ass tune.
Because here's the deal. Like you said, what's weird is you're talking a Master System or Game Gear, and this came out in 97, the song.
Right.
Best case, he wrote it in 96. So was he actively playing a Master System or Game Gear then? Like, by that point, like, wouldn't you have had a Genesis? Like, there's so many little questions I have.
Unless he was Brazilian or European, probably wasn't. So, I don't know. I don't know who the hell the sound engineer was who put the song together, but it's probably a deal where either maybe he was that weird kid on the block who grew up with the Master System. Maybe there's that, so he always had that stuck in his head.
But when you hear that, though, when you see something this, like...
blatant.
Does it kind of piss you off? You're like, then where the fuck is the connection to, like, Green Hill Zone? Or, like, something very much better? Like...
Or more well-known?
Exactly.
Maybe you can't go too well known because then you'll get sued faster or more easy. So maybe the fact he snuck this in there, not like Sega would probably have the money to take on Sony Music or whoever the hell the record label was, especially in the 90s when record labels like ruled the world. So not like you'd win a lawsuit with that anyway, even though this was pretty blatant.
But I'm curious, like, so, you know, rappers especially, but a lot of musicians, they sample other music. They have to buy the rights from their previous owner, and usually it's much more expensive when it's a song.
Right.
But if it was something obscure like this, like, I can't imagine the royalties for a goddamn Bridge Zone song from a Game Gear and Master System can't be as much as, like, you know, like sampling a P. Diddy song, or like, you know,
Or like when
an old
Vanilla Ice
Police
sampled
song.
Queen. Yeah.
Well, Jim, it was much different. He went din 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 din. Tss.
Yep. There was that extra thing.
But that's why I'm actually kind of curious. We talk about pop culture all the time. People have such a boner for 80s, early 90s. Why don't artists, like, there are some great tracks and music from that era. Like, I can't imagine getting those royalties is harder than all the other shit they sample from previous artists. I don't know. Like, maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but yeah.
Yeah, and maybe this is just one where a guy went, let me see if I can get away with this, and he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is one I want to almost follow up. Like, I want to, like, dig into. Be like, did anyone ever, like, do a lawsuit about that? Like,
Nothing I ever heard of, but that would be interesting.
Yeah. So, no, that was a good pull. And like I said, I definitely want to make that a recurring bit. So, you guys listen. I think it's irrefutable that it's the same. But
Yeah. And if you have examples, please send them our way so we can take a look.
For sure. So this next one, it's a video link you can see below. It comes from Yang Yeah.
Yang Yi, Yang Yeah.
Yeah.
Another YouTuber way more popular than us. But the long story short is, so Dead or Alive 6. People have been pissed off at Dead or Alive 6 for a while because of the DLC in the game. So, like, that's been a common problem with gaming for ages now, this whole generation. Anything that back in the day would be an unlockable in the game, you now charge you for it. Dead or Alive 6 was just egregious because you would basically have to pay $1 to rent to change a hairstyle on a character. And then if you paid another $1 to do another hairstyle, you lost the old hairstyle that you had. And with all the DLC they had in general, he did the math and it came to, like, if you wanted to have every single piece of DLC in the game at once, it would cost you like $2,000, like, initially.
Yeah, I watched the video. You and I have talked about some DLC that's like completely, it's nuts. This is the worst case I've heard. And essentially, as Jim just said, like, you buy these ticket packs for Dead or Alive 6. And if you bought everything, it's that crazy amount. But yeah, the worst part about this is they're fixed to buy different hair colors. As described in this video is, if you have a fighter and they have black hair and you want to put it to blonde, it's roughly $1. But it doesn't save both. If you want to switch it back, you got to spend $1 to get back to black. That's nuts. But what really bothers me about this is, yes, that company, as pointed out in the video, this is very greedy. This is crazy. They're only doing this because people fucking spend that money. And people do this. Like, DLCs for aesthetic things, Jim and I have talked about. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's crazy. There's no excuse for it. But the only reason they keep doing this shit is because people buy it enough. It could even be 20% of whoever bought the base game. And they're clearly making enough money where they're like, well, people are going to keep paying for it. Like, would you ever in your craziest dream, and Jim, let's say you were only playing your favorite game ever. If there was an option to change hair color for $1, would you ever do that?
No.
This is my question. Who are the people out there that are doing, like, even as a kid, and I was obsessed with unlocking things, and this is when it was free, like games where it was like PlayStation and you know, earlier. If you just had to keep playing through to unlock costumes, there came a point when I was like, all right, I'm not going to spend 20 hours just to get a new costume that does nothing. Like,
right.
There was a point where I was just like, oh, fuck, like, okay, even then. But I can't even imagine, like, saying, like, oh, this game is perfect, except if X fighter has fucking purple hair, and I really need that, and this is ruining my day. Like, who the fuck is doing this?
Fighting game nerds.
Even if you're a fighting
the
game
fighting
nerd.
game community who want to have their specific character, I guess, when they go through the online, I guarantee they at least spend a couple dollars to get their character just right. And like the thing is, like the fix to it, quote unquote, is when you buy one hairstyle, it'll give you like all the colors of that hairstyle permanently now instead of like as a rental.
Thank God.
So if you still want all the hairstyles in the game, and that's just one hairstyle, and every character has multiple hairstyles, shock and all. So you're still gonna have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars to have everything in the game. But now they just gave you a little pittance there. You can hold on to what you bought, and you get a little bit more.
Oh man. Like, but so that's yeah. So your fix is addressing what I said at the beginning, which was
Well, that's the fix they gave. That isn't
Yeah.
my fix.
no. I'm saying though, to your point. Okay, let me try and be devil's advocate. I'm someone obsessed in the fighting game community, esports. I bring my character. I want it to be exactly how I see fit. But I feel like that group, when you get to people who are that level and you're so obsessed, you're not even looking at the character anymore. They're just attributes and abilities for you to execute moves to win the game. Like you're not even like, I feel like they're not even looking at their character anymore. And they're only looking at the match and what's going on. So what the fuck? Who cares about hairstyle, hair color? Like truly. Like maybe if that's the
Weebs.
only game you're gonna
Weebs.
buy for an entire year, I don't know. I'm trying to justify it, Jim. I'm trying to see who would want to spend even $1. And I know it's not a much. And if once again, if you put $60 out for a game and that's a game that's gonna satiate you for 2 years and this makes you happy and you spend a couple dollars, 10, 15, 20. Okay. Like you're a good example, Jim. So you're someone, you and I got into this. You get goddamn hook, line, and sinker for mobile games. Clash of Titan or Clash of Clans, the X-Men Marvel card game. And you fell for the trap of, while you were in it deep, you're like, I'll just pay a couple bucks for this thing. Like those whatever packs, right?
For packs or shit like that. It's happened
So-
here or there.
I couldn't understand it even then because I'm like, I was obsessed with those games too, but I was like, oh man, like still, I know we might win this raid or this might help me against this, but at the end of the day, like you're just going to have another raid after it. You're going to have another thing. But like, so the mentality of, let me spend a few more bucks for a game that was all in all free. It was free. Like roughly, if you're being completely honest, how much do you think you spent on that Marvel card game?
Probably about like 50-ish.
Yeah. So that was a free mobile game that you really enjoyed. You don't play anymore, but okay.
Well, the
you
game's
throw it out
dead now, so it's even worse.
Yeah.
Dead and
But
gone.
you still play Clash of Clans, right?
Oh, obsessively.
How much do you think you've dropped in that?
Probably about the same amount.
So when I see you do that, I guess it makes sense that you care. It's different because you're paying for something that's directly related to performance and the ability to play the game
Well,
and be.
I know what you're getting
be
at
better.
here. Like, I'm like nothing compared to the crazy people out there too. Like, it's almost like anything else where it's like gambling or like a casino where 80% of the money comes from 20% of the audience, and they're like the most hardcore of hardcores. Like
Yeah.
you see with like the top tier players, like anytime there's a new major update in Clash, the people who are in like those top tier leagues, like in the overall rankings, within 3 hours they're already leveled up like ridiculously and almost done. Where if you just grind it out like a normal person, it would take you a year and a half to do. So
Yeah.
they're just money. Now, sure, the top tier teams are probably sponsored, but the guys trying to get into them, they're throwing down crazy cash.
No, I hear you, and that's like I said. I kind of get it when you get a competitive advantage, and I don't like it because that's that whole
Pay to
what's
win
the
shit.
term?
Yeah.
Pay to win. But yeah, like once again, even if it's $1, like you're paying for haircuts, you're paying for things that don't give you any kind of tactical advantage. As someone that's a hardcore gamer, and I said at the beginning of this podcast, I spend over 70, 80 hours in a Fallout game collecting goddamn scrap metal so I can build something that means nothing to anyone. What the fuck is the point? I still can't wrap my head around why this makes sense. So
No, yeah, I mean, there's no justification for it at all.
yeah.
It's just people fooling their money, as they say.
No, it's a good find though. I like that. So good job with that. But I'm just, it bothers me, but it doesn't surprise me.
I'm just surprised that more people didn't make a big deal out of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like I feel like it's like a. What's
Like
the word
that looks
I
like the
wanna
kind of like subject that like Jim Strong would jerk off over, because that's how he makes like all his money is like outrage over microtransactions.
It's what a lot outrage is what everyone seems to make their money off. Jim.
Right, got to become a drama channel, get them views.
Oh, look at who said this during a stream.
Right, Susie Lou's gonna destroy the platform.
I don't know who that is.
You're lucky. All right, so next up, it's from our buddy Kit. So he actually threw this idea out there, and I was like, all right, this is a good one we can go with. So it's kind of a change on the old, like, you know, you're stuck on a desert island kind of question. So this version of it, you pick one game system and one handheld system, 5 games from each, and it's the only thing you can play for 1 year. And I think the 1 year part's where it really makes it interesting.
All right. So, yeah. So the 1 year thing makes it interesting. Let me just, for clarification, though, Jim, for you and I, if we're going to answer this, do we assume that whatever situation we're in, we still have access to like Wi-Fi, like we can play with our friends, or is it just the Bears?
I don't know.
Because that changes my answers pretty drastically.
Yeah, that does change it. But I'll stick with mine. But let's say yes.
You do have Wi-Fi.
Yeah, let's say yes.
Okay. So, I'll let you go first because I'm going to get mad. Wait. Can I just guess yours?
Sure.
You're going to say the Genesis and the Switch.
Incorrect.
Huh.
I was actually going surprisingly pragmatic on this one.
Okay.
That's probably not the right word, but...
But I think handheld, you're going Switch because I'm counting that as handheld.
No, you could easily... I think that's almost too easy an answer to say to like the Switch Lite, which is just a handheld, like you could easily do. But no, I'm going a little different with mine. So, I am famous for having missed out on all the RPGs because I'm not an RPG guy and I don't have the time. So, if this is all I can play for a year, I'm catching up on goddamn RPGs. So, for my console, I'm picking the Super NES, and I'm doing Earthbound, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, Secret of Mana, and I'll throw another one in there. There's 1,000 of them. And for the handheld, I'll go with the PSP, and I'll do like the East Collection. I think there's like a Dragon Quest game on there. There's there's a shitload of Final Fan or of RPGs on that thing. So I'll pick the best from, or maybe I'll say the Vita and get into the Persona games finally. So no, I'll change it to Vita. So I'll do a couple of the Persona games and whatever other high-end RPGs are on there. I think there's an East game on there, so I'll do one of the East games and one of the Final Fantasy spinoffs.
Okay. No, I respect that. That's good answers. If I'm going, I'm a little similar to you in the sense I'm trying to think of games I need to beat. So as far as actual system, I'm gonna go with my PS4 because there's a lot of games I haven't beat yet or just want to play. Mm-hmm. And the Switch as my handheld. So PS4, I'm going to go with the new God of War. I'm going to go with the new Spider-Man. I'm going to go with... I always fuck up the title of this. Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah, that's the title.
It? Yep. Finally, Bloodborne, because I've been like 50% through that game and I just need to fucking finish it. And... let's see, PS4, if I'm thinking of a game, I'll throw in, I guess I'll get Fallout 76 for that and play it through there. And then as far as Switch, I'm going to finally beat the rest of Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey. I'll give Splatoon or Splatoon 2, whatever the newest one is. Mm-hmm. I'll give that a try. I'll do I'll do Rocket League and be way better than Jim in my first game. And one more game. Luigi's Mansion 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Solid
So
pick.
basically all games that I just haven't beat. That's really the purpose of that. So yeah. Interesting one. You and I, like I said, we've answered it many times. Well, not many times, but we've kind of touched on
A couple times, yeah.
the Desert Island one. But that's like game for the rest of your life style versus just 1 year.
Right. So yeah, I like that little twist on it.
Yeah, thanks, kid. I like that.
Right.
Finally
So
got Jim to play some good games. So go on, Jim. Next topic.
I can finally fairly say whether all these little weeby stories where everyone cries is, if it's worth the hype all these years later.
Jim, you don't have emotions.
That's a good point, so I'll probably still hate them. Next up is a recurring bit. So I put this one in here, and it is overrated, underrated. And this week's is going to be easy modes in video
Jim,
games.
you're hitting on a hot topic in gaming that's been a hot topic forever.
It's been a hot topic forever, and just within like the last week or two again, it blew up again because like Guru Larry made some statement about, I don't see why you'd ever do it, and it's like having a wank but not doing something or other, blah, 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 blah. And it's that classic argument of, well, if you play it on easy mode, then there's no point in it because you're not playing how the game was intended. Because games are high art, and these developers are really trying to make the best vision possible. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
I'm so fucking sick of that argument.
So yeah, can I say one thing about that argument and why it's so goddamn stupid? The worst part of it's not what the developer intended. Well, number one, the developer released it. So whatever's in the game, in theory, and I've learned this the hard way. You actually had this goddamn argument about one of the things you and I talked about, which was the annoyance in playing Halo and how cheap it was to use the cloak and the rocket and the sword.
Nah.
Like you're like, it's in the game. I didn't put a cheat, so it's in there. So blah, blah, blah. Like, and we all know
As I intended.
There's glitches in games, and then there's things that are just in there, and it's bad form. So when you do multiplayer games, I do believe in such thing as, yes, it's in the game, it's available, but it's really meant for people who've like just started. I've talked many times when I play Dead by Daylight, dude. I've never seen a community get so fucking butthurt when you beat, like, especially so it's asymmetrical. You're a killer versus 4 humans, and the humans have to repair generators. Yeah, but here's the deal. Like, if God forbid you actually just win the game, they send you all this shit, and literally I was like, they were calling you a tunneler. They were calling you all these things. I was like, I don't even know what that means. Like, I've just started playing this game. What are you talking about? They're like, that means when you hurt someone and then you keep going after them. I was like, shouldn't
the point?
you do that? They're like, no, because that makes it less competitive because then you take them out of the game. I'm like, once again, like, you're the killer. You're supposed to kill people. They're like, yeah, but you should hurt everyone and not keep going after the same guy. I'm like, but that's not how hunting works. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? So that community is a perfect example where, like, they clearly have visions of, like, bad form in a game. You shouldn't camp. You shouldn't do this. Putting all that aside, if a developer releases an easy mode, then you can't use the argument that it's not what they intended because they put it out there. It'd be different if it was like somebody hacked an easy mode, or you did something to add an easy mode after the fact. No, like Demon Souls and Dark Souls and all those games. There's a reason those games are so fucking hard, and there is no easy mode. And some people complain they wish there should be, but that developer said, well, we don't want our art, quote unquote, to be tainted by having an easier mode. We think you should just play the game how it is. So, yeah, you can never use that argument if the developer includes it. That's not how they intended it. So sorry to go off on a rant, but...
And here's another rant for you real quick. And I think we've said it before. Video games can be art, but it doesn't mean that all video games are art.
This is very true.
For the love of God, don't pitch that this grand design and vision has been compromised because they put in an easy mode for people. Because the big argument for that, I think right now, and I'm probably wrong a little bit on it, but from what I pieced together, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, I think there's an easy mode where, like, I guess in the main mode, like, there might be, like, some kind of permadeath or your characters can die in your party, but in this mode, they don't. Whatever. Yeah. So, what do you call it? Do your pick for overrated, underrated.
Yeah. So, for everyone commenting there, I'm just going to right off the bat, I'm going to say underrated to piss people off because here's the deal. What everyone who makes those comments about easy mode and you forget, and Jim and I being 30-year-old dudes, like, video games are meant for kids. And no kid picked up the first game. Yeah, I hate the people that act like growing up in the NES era made you fucking hard or something. Like, they talk about, like, you know, we've talked about them, but Mike Matei is notorious for shitting on, you know, the Switch and the controls for going back. Like, don't act like we went through some hardship growing up. Like, it built this strong character in us because we played video games that were a little tougher. That's not real hardship in fucking life. Let's just put that out.
Oh my God. Yes, thank for the love of God. Like, anyone who's ever said, I learned so much and made so much of myself in life because I beat a hard video game. Fuck you didn't.
Don't fucking say that sentence ever.
Just because you beat Ninja Gaiden did not mean that you found a way to get over the death of a loved one to become the CEO of a company. That's never happened once ever.
Yeah, the simplest thing you could say is like, yo.
It was a good distraction.
Games were harder when I was younger. But don't, like, equate it to, like, someone, like, you're equating it to this real life struggle, like, yo, I lost both my parents when I was a kid and I had to deal with shit versus somebody who had, like, I don't like that comparison, so it's like, knock that shit off right off the bat. But easy modes are meant for kids. It's meant for people who are just new to the games, and it's meant for people. Easy modes, the reason why they're underrated is because they can introduce someone who's not hardcore, who hasn't spent their whole life gaming. It gets them invested in a game and playing, because what would be the purpose? The same people that would bitch about people who hate easy modes would be the same people who would go out and try something in real life and realize, man, shit's hard when you got to put a lot of effort. I don't want to do this no more. So easy mode is that easy, like, it allows you to come in, try it, see, is this something I generally like? If you like it enough, then you kind of develop into a better player.
Then you become better. Then you put the time in.
Exactly. And easy modes are meant for single player. I look at that as a single player thing. Multiplayer games, that's completely off, you know, you're going to get thrown in there with people of your same rank, and actually, whatever.
Even then, there's a good way to do it. And we talked about it, I think, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when Mario Kart 8 Deluxe threw in, like, the kind of, like, safe play mode for, like, newer players.
Yeah.
And I actually saw this in real life with my wife, because she would play it with us, and as a default for the second player, it would put you on, like, safety guided mode. So she could still have fun and still be competitive. And then,
exactly,
like, we realized that, like, you know, she was on it, so we turned it off. She hit every single wall she could, and she was getting lapped left and right, and she wasn't having any fun.
Yeah.
So, like, I know easy mode now is different than easy mode when we were kids, because when we were kids, not to sound old, but what the hell I am, like, it was almost like perfect how they would do it in some games, where it's not only a little bit easier, but you want to be able to play the entire game. It would cut you off halfway through, or it'd give you a bad ending if you beat on easy mode, and it would say, hey, go back and play it on medium so you can see the real thing and play everything. So it was a good way to learn how to play the game without just getting pissed off and throwing it away.
Yeah, but no, so going back, so it's underrated for that one reason. Keeps people invested, and at the end of the day, video games are supposed to be fun. Fuck looking at them. If you want, I consider some games an art form, sure. It's a fun form of escapism, of entertainment. So if you're not having fun, you don't want to play. And also, for Jim and I, when we review multiple games, especially games we've never played, if we need footage to show you guys, and if a game is good enough, we're going to go through on harder modes. But if it's easier for us to spend only 3 or 4 hours to go through and beat the whole game so we get to see what the story's like versus 12 to 16 hours that we don't have, it's a godsend when games do have that, because then we can still say, all right, this is what the story's like. And then we can expand on what our take is on the game. So there's really no reason for a game not to have an easy mode. Once again, unless you're like Dark Souls and all that, and that's just your vision of don't play this game if you want an easy mode.
Then fine.
I respect that.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine with me. But I hate when people get mad or like talk shit on others that what value do you have that you beat RE3 on fucking Inferno mode versus the guy who beat it on easy mode? You saw the same ending. Yes, the guy on easy mode could do it a hell of a lot faster and didn't have to learn the perfect dodge and all that. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you did it. Good job. I just don't see the value in shitting on others who played easy mode. Now, here's the deal. If say Jim was being a shit dick and was like, I beat that game just like you, and I did it on easy mode. And I was like, I beat it on Inferno. And he's like, well, I'm just as good as you. There's an argument.
Then fine.
There's where you can brass tacks, you get down to it. But before then, you just say, okay, yeah, what'd you think of the story? That's all you got to get down to. But if you're trying to fucking compare yourself to other guys by saying you're a better gamer, that goes back to like, what are you doing? Just what are you doing?
Bri, so I'll give my answer just to get out of the way. And it's obviously overrated because the developer's vision for the story is the most important thing. And we have to be true gamers and learn to persevere through hardships. So
I don't believe you, Jim.
Obviously, it's overrated. Get good, Scrubs. Mic drop.
Now,
I don't have a mic to drop.
Now, what's your real answer?
Oh, completely underrated. Come on now.
Yeah, of course. Here's the deal. Other than the tired answers, like Jim just jokingly said, I would love to know why. I would love to know why somebody would think this is overrated. Because it's not like having an easy mode impedes on your ability. If you choose to do normal or hard, the fact that there's an easy mode doesn't affect you at all. And in fact, they put every incentive out there, whether you're someone like who is obsessed with winning trophies or challenges from Xbox, or you unlock shit in a game. They do enough incentives like you unlock more and get more shit for doing the harder modes. So even if you're an achievement hunter, there you go. Like, there's a reason for it. So it's not like they incentivize playing the easy mode. And as Jim alluded to, NES games would shit on you and be like, well, you did it easy. Try again on hard or normal. So what reason would you have to shit on easy mode? If somebody only wants to play easy mode and go through it, let them be. Just, I don't get it.
Street Cat, Bri. Street Cat's so important. But that's enough about that. Because we're going to roll into another one of our topics, one of our recurring bits, and our last topic for this episode. And that is going to be, which is better? And you put this in here, so why don't you tell it?
So I was thinking about this, and it's a simple one, but I think the answer, and I want you to think about it, not just blah, blah, blah like you usually do. When it comes to Sonic, and if you want to say franchise, fine, but I'm really talking about Sonic 1. What was better about that game? And take the context of when it came out. The music or the graphics? And to just lay the groundwork, I look at it
I'm going to type this in here to say Sonic 1.
That's fine.
Graphics.
Yeah, because really what I'm saying is, okay, Sonic 1, when it came out, the Genesis, especially, like their blast processing, everything, basically the shit you saw all the time was from Sonic. How fast it moves, how impressive it was, graphically, what it could do on this system. And it was really the first line of competition to Super Mario, to Nintendo. It was the standing thing of like, look at what we can do, what you guys can't, because of how fast it moves. I think much later on, not that you didn't love the music as a kid, but as a kid, especially in that era, you were surrounded with great music. And like most things that become cult appeal, like Green Hill Zone and that soundtrack are memorable because you grew up with it, you loved it. And we know how classic that first soundtrack is. But
that
what
whole
do you
soundtrack's a
think?
masterpiece.
Yeah, what do you think is actually truly better with all that historical, not just personal preference, but you add in historical context?
You butt fucker.
There you go. Because I know you would just go music, and I don't blame you. I'm not even saying that's wrong.
Right.
But I'm saying, like, if you add in historical context, which is better, the music or the graphics?
It's going to have to be graphics just because of how fast, how smooth, how clean it plays. And then if you take a look at the Japanese version, which I think came out a couple months later, it actually had even better graphics than the North American one because the background layers had like different multi-layered parallax scrolling where the background layers in the North American one will just be pretty static.
Hold on. I gotta check one
God
thing.
piss, damn it.
Yeah, I know, but the problem is I think we're in America, so I'm talking about America. So stop talking about goddamn Japan and their releases. So let's stick to brass tacks. And you didn't grow up in Okinawa, did you?
I don't know. I might have.
I don't think you did, Jim. I think
I could say I did. Prove me wrong. You weren't around back then. You didn't know me.
Where was the house located that you pulled Doritos out of your dishwasher? Was that Japan? I don't think it was.
Might not be.
Was that in the northeastern region of America?
Possibly.
So,
Possibly northeastern.
Yeah. So let's
Atlantic
just
coast.
worry about the America. Let's not show like you're trying to peacock with your nerd knowledge of Japanese games. Don't do that.
Probably let me peacock.
So let's just stick to American releases. You
want to see
motherfucker.
my peacock?
So you're going graphics.
Unfortunately, if you're gonna throw your fucking historical significance and all that stuff in there, then yes, it's gonna have to be graphics solely based on just how it truly showed what the Genesis could do with speed and power. Because we're not talking like Last Battle or Altered Beast where they had big sprites that showed the power, but the gameplay was clunky as shit. No, this was pure speed, like crazy smooth. Like it really showed like, holy crap, this next generation's insane.
Yeah. So I'll actually agree with you. And what I was thinking, it's along the same lines. It's basically, number one, this was the goddamn poster child for competition to Nintendo. And this, better than any better than any Sega Genesis game, showed what the Genesis could do. And arguably, it's like the best example because most other games couldn't get that speed and that frame rate down the same way this game could.
Right.
But on top of that, music is obviously super subjective, as you and I discussed. Like, you tie this isn't a dig. We all tie our nostalgia to what we grew up with.
Right.
And you've been proven wrong by all of our fans, not even saying me. And your selection of Sega songs versus Super NES songs and yada, yada, yada. But really, it
not
just
always.
comes down
I'm dying on that Mortal Kombat 1 hill, and people are agreeing with me.
Listen, Jim, my point is that music and sounds are so subjective, but graphics are kind of they can be subjective, but at the same time, like there's no denying how impressive graphically it is. Like even if you want to hate on the Sega Genesis, whatever, the things we're pointing out, the frame rate, how fast it is, the color, like there's no doubt if you look at that versus the NES games, it's better looking. Even if you don't prefer it, you can say this is a better looking thing. Yeah, I may not prefer it, but whatever. Whereas sound, someone, if they wanted to argue like we did one of our first which is betters, what's better, the Super Mario Brothers soundtrack or Sonic?
Yeah.
You could argue just which one is more classic, which one sticks in you. Like there's a lot of things you can. Whereas graphics, you can't argue. So just for that reason, since it seems to be a little more irrefutable, I'm going to say graphics are better. But that's not to say the music isn't goddamn excellent.
Yep. Yeah, because I mean, when I first saw it, I was just like, "Oh, the music." But when you put it, that way, I was like, "Okay, fine, yeah, the graphics."
So this, all right. If I'm just, we don't got to dive deep. You personally, and you don't have to put historical context.
Right.
I think I already answered it for you. What has more of a lasting impact on you from games, the graphics or the sound?
It'll be a good soundtrack will last with me way longer.
Has there ever been a game that graphically impressed you so much that that's what stuck with you? Because I was trying to think about that.
That's a good question.
Like it's tough because you can be a kid, and I remember the first time I saw an FMV.
Oh, you know what? You know what? I've mentioned this one a bunch of times before, but I always go back to it, and even in the grand scheme of things, it's not a great example, but Star Wars on the 32X. Just seeing 3D polygons of, the X-Wing flying around and having General Akbar at the bottom actually talking to me blew me away. And that first, holy shit kind of moment always stuck with me there. So I guess if it's, a generational kind of, expansion or, jump, it does, but, for as far as, a single game goes, I can't really think of anything.
Well, I think, no, what you just provided is kind of what I'm getting at.
Okay.
Like I said, for me, Resident Evil, that FMV, that opening movie, I was like, that's just a movie on here.
Yeah.
And it looks movie quality. It sounds great. That lasted with me of just oh, this is what games can show you now. Because before that point, I hadn't seen anything. Doesn't mean there wasn't other things like that. I just hadn't seen it. So that stuck with me oh, so every game can do this.
Yeah.
They can make a mini movie before. And I loved cutscenes. I was all about it as a kid.
Oh, you know what? You know what? I can throw another one in there, too, along your lines. The intro to WCW vs. the World, when, to me, that looked like straight up just, a highlight reel off Monday Nitro.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Obviously, the graphical, what you were impressed with from a kid is it's impressionable, but it doesn't last. Like a kid that just starts playing games today, if they saw ER things we just mentioned, they'd be like, yeah, every game does those things, or whatever. Music is a thing that lasts longer and can really outshine the game. I think most nostalgia people have for games, like you and I have talked about, sometimes can really be just tied to the music. You can be like, okay, the control might not be as good as I thought it was. The gameplay's kind of simple, but that goddamn soundtrack really gets me. Whereas graphics are the things that really, you're like, whoa, this catch. I feel like you never know it's a good song until many, many times playing it, and then later thinking about it.
Yeah, what do you call it? What do you call it? Graphics are short-term memory, music's long-term memory.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. You're immersed in holy shit in the moment. Whereas 5 years down the line, you're like, oh yeah, I still have that theme stuck in my head. You talk about one of your games you love was, what was it, Mass Effect 2 or 3?
Yeah.
Can you think of any music from that game?
Not really. I actually think of the sound effect of the Reaper more than anything in those games.
But that's my point. I'm not saying that the music's bad in that game.
No, the music's good. It just never stuck with me the same way. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just, that's always an interesting, what impacts you more. So,
yeah.
All right. So with that, guys, I think we're going to close it out. Once again, we really appreciate everyone sticking around. If you haven't already, please subscribe to us below on YouTube, or if you're listening to us on iTunes, please give us a rating. Even if you hate us, if you wouldn't mind, give us a 5-star. You can bash us like many other podcasts talk about. But if you ever want to hear us talk about anything, feel free, send us a message. You can contact us multiple ways.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email. Make sure to check out our actual website, too, so you can see all of our beer reviews up on there.
Yep. And with that, guys, we're going to say goodnight and cheers.
Cheers.